The 2019 Edmonton Pride Festival has been cancelled as a result of the organizational leaders' inability to acquiesce to the demands of protest groups. Is this identity politics reaching its natural conclusion? I'm your host, B.A. Jarvis, and you're watching The Golden Door. Alright, we're back with another video for you guys about a story that came to my attention almost 2 weeks ago, so bear with me as we get through the backlog of the olds and back to the news. Also, for parties who are interested, I will be ramping up video production over the next couple of weeks to get through a considerable backlog of videos focusing on the Canadian political scene as we set the table, so to speak, for the next provincial election in Newfoundland and Labrador on May 16th. There's going to be some good stuff coming up, such as the long-awaited video on the SNC Lavalin controversy, as well as the constitutional court battle over the federal carbon tax, so make sure to hit that subscribe button in advance so you don't miss out. As reported by several Canadian news outlets, the Edmonton Pride Parade and other Pride Week events have been cancelled as the board of directors are unable to meet the demands of activist groups Shades of Colour and Rara despite seemingly making a concerted effort to do so, without jeopardizing their legal standing as a non-profit. Shades of Colour is a non-profit organization promoting the rights of queer and trans, Black, Indigenous, and people of colour, which seems to have originated in 2015 according to the group's Facebook page. Rara is another non-profit which was formed in 2017 with the aim of promoting human rights for all LGBTQIQ+ refugees in Canada and to raise awareness about gaps in service and struggles for this population. The demands made by these two groups on the Pride Festival are narcissistic and egregious, and I'll be looking at them closely in the video later on as examples of intersectionality and identitarian politics run amok, but for now I want to take a quick detour to explain a bit of the history of how we got here. This whole sad episode started nearly 3 years ago in 2016 when Black Lives Matter Toronto, taking part in the Pride Parade as the honoured guests of that year, decided to hold a protest during the parade in the Ontario capital. After holding up the parade for over half an hour, the group forced the capitulation of Toronto Pride Executive Director Matthew Chantelois when he signed a document agreeing to the group's demands. Spokesperson for the group, Alexandria Williams, said at the time, "We are not taking any space away from any folks. When we talk about homophobia, transphobia, we go through that too. It should be a cohesive unit, not one against the other. Anti-blackness needs to be addressed, and they can be addressed at the same time in the same spaces," she said. "We didn't bully our way into Pride, we made space for ourselves in a place that we have been erased," Williams added. In addition to demands such as confronting anti-Black racism and prioritizing Black spaces, the group insisted that uniformed police officers no longer be welcome to participate in the parade, a demand that revealed divisions within the Pride organizers and seemed to irk the population of Toronto as a whole. As is usually the case with surrendering to the authoritarian demands of an organization, the demands are likely to continue. In 2018, emboldened by the success of Black Lives Matter Toronto to set the narrative for the city's Pride celebration, protesters organized a similar shutdown of Pride events in the Alberta provincial capital of Edmonton. The 2018 demands were as follows. Number 1. That the Pride Society uninvite the Edmonton Police Service, RCMP, and military from marching in future parades. Number 2. That the Society restructure its board and staff hiring practices to have more representation from people of color and trans folks. Number 3. That more well-funded spaces specifically designed for people of color and trans folks be included in the festival. And number 4. That all mainstream Pride spaces clearly acknowledge and honor Pride's history as a demonstration against police oppression. It should be noted that these bans are not just for uniformed police officers, as was the case in 2016, but rather ununiformed members of these organizations as well, which is quite frankly appalling. After shutting down the parade for more than an hour, this crowd, which doesn't appear to be primarily made up of refugees and people of color, eventually let the event continue after the Pride Society board acquiesced to all 4 demands. Which brings us to 2019, and as it turns out, the demands presented in 2018 were only a list of initial demands by the two groups. So let's take a quick look at what was in store for the Pride organization this year. So here we are with Pride Demands 2019, which, not to be content with a simple list like we had in 2018, no, the two organizations have given us over 4 pages of demands this year, and I wanted to start by pointing out that it's supposed to be addressed to the Edmonton Pride Festival Society, not the EPSF, whatever that is, and that's a typo that they made over 4 times in the document, but let's continue. The EPFS has stated to meet our initial demands we presented in Pride 2018. We are happy that the police and military have been removed from Pride. Again, completely egregious. Today we are meeting to discuss the well-funded QTIBPOC. I'm going to try that's queer, trans, intersex, bisexual, people of color space at Pride, which was also a demand mentioned in Pride 2018 as well as other demands. So not going to read through this whole thing, just want to quickly go through the demands. Demand 1, reorganize the structure of Pride, open Pride with a protest led by the QTIBPOC, trans folks and their allies, allocate funding for QTIBPOC and trans folks to host community building and creative workshops, and make this the main feature of Pride in the Park. Included in this will be musical performances by QTIBPOC artists. Finally, end the Pride in the Park with a vigil honoring the lives of the LGBTQIQ activists and community members who were lost due to systematic oppression, including transphobia, racism, classism, capitalism, etc. Second demand, I do want to point out a thing. It's essential in line with the theme of Stonewall that Pride is led with a protest against systemic injustice. This protest will be filmed in the news and will give the QTIBPOC an opportunity to have their voices heard in the broader community. This protest will be in place of the parade, and anyone who wishes to join must have their beliefs that are in line with the messaging of the protest. Shades of Color community and Raricanal will assess via email who applies to partake in the protest and ensure that applicants adhere to a set of criteria based on the values and principles of protest. Upon inspection by Shades of Color and Raricanal, applicants will be either permitted or denied entry. These criteria will be attached in this document. So the criteria is as follows. Again, I'll post a link to this document in the description below because I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's pretty ridiculous. Demand 2, straight up cash grab, rework the budget, and provide Shades of Color and Raricanal with $20,000 each. Thank you very much. Just cut a check, if you would. So, demand 3, provide the SOC team and Raricanal with the money to access or ongoing training so we can best create these spaces for our communities. So, more money. Demand 4, $1,500 to fund a SOC-organized QTIBPOC sober dance party in the evening of Pride. And it goes on to explain why this is necessary. Demand 5, write an accountability statement outlining the harm the Edmonton Pride Festival Society has caused QTIBPOC community and a public commitment to rectifying this harm. This statement will be publicly released with this document by the EPFS. Demand 6, feature Shades of Color and Raricanal on the front 4 pages of the Pride Guide. So not even content with just the cover or the first 2 pages. No, the first 4 pages. And finally, Demand 7, work with Raricanal to support QTIBPOC refugees and newcomers, provide resources and writing support letters when necessary, and make a public commitment to center these communities. So if I was to attempt to boil down this 4 pages into a single paragraph, it would be something as follows. Bend the knee, kiss the ring, hand over the checkbook, and let us make all of the decisions from here on out. Thank you very much. So this is the unfortunate but logical conclusion as a result of being presented with a list of such unreasonable demands. So I just want to highlight a couple of sentences in this announcement here. According to 2 members of the society who wished to remain anonymous out of fear of reprisal for the decision, canceling the festival was made after they couldn't meet the demands of the LGBTQ groups within the community advocating for marginalized members and people of color. The 2 organizers said a number of demands couldn't be approved because they would fundamentally change the structure and the mission of the society while jeopardizing its not-for-profit status. They said they could no longer run a Pride Festival without creating further divisions within the community, which is just sad. Also, Victoria Guzman, organizer for Shades of Color, disputed the notion, saying that all demands were negotiable. We were totally willing to have an open dialogue, she said. And of course, yes, they're negotiable, so why call them demands then? Why not call them requests? I want to stress at this point that there's nothing here to celebrate. There is a popular saying among conservative circles that the left eats itself, and there's a tendency among the right of center to sometimes laugh or even celebrate stories like this because it showcases how identity politics are illogical and self-destructive. This is not my intention with this video. I'm not a parade guy, so to speak, but I encourage and appreciate any event that brings people together to celebrate. It's a beautiful thing and necessary, especially for someone in the gay community who may have been brought up in a religious environment where they're believing that their behavior is fundamentally sinful. What I don't understand is the desire among the absolute fringe left, which I like to call the control left if we're going to offer an extremist description in line with the alt-right, to co-opt things that they have not built. Start your own event and build it. You have no right to something that's been built off the sweat of others over years and years and suddenly feel like you have the right to own it. These demands, including all of their history with Black Lives Matter, as well as the inevitable outcome with the cancellation of the Edmonton Pride Festival, is probably the most un-Canadian thing that I can imagine. My heart truly goes out to everyone who is looking forward to participating in the festival this year, especially the police and military service members, as they seem to have a long road ahead for them to be invited back to participate. Alright, as always, thanks very much again for watching the video. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button below. And until next time, you have been watching The Golden Door.